Okay, picture this. You're a desperate truck driver in the middle of a vast, freezing, and completely isolated Alaskan wilderness. It is pitch black out. You're drowning in a mountain of debt, hauling a massive sealed container, and you have absolutely no idea what's inside, but you know one thing for sure. This is no ordinary delivery. Today we're unpacking a first-hand account that completely redefines the concept of a dangerous job. We're talking about an environment so hostile, so lethally dangerous, that it totally defies all logic.
Once you start this job, you have to finish it, whatever happens. Listen to that. That was the final, chilling warning from the mysterious dispatcher just before our driver hit the road. That wasn't just, professional advice. That was a threat. It sets up this atmosphere of absolute, inescapable danger right out the gate. From the second that engine turned over, there was zero turning back, no matter what kind of nightmare was waiting for him in the dark.
Section 1. The $50,000 Terrifying Trap.
Okay, let's dive into this. The driver was drowning in heavy debt, an expensive house, a premium car, and those crippling monthly payments had essentially trapped him. He was desperate, and that made him the perfect target for an unlisted, off-the-books job. Which brings us to this absolutely staggering number, $50,000 in cold, hard cash, paid up front for a single one-way trip across Alaska. Now, we all know when the money is this outrageously good for just a simple driving gig, there is always a deadly catch. This wasn't a paycheck, guys. This was hazard pay for surviving the impossible.
Next up, 5 terrifying rules. Now, what's really interesting here is that this wasn't just a route. It was a bizarre contract that basically stripped away every single modern safety net a driver has. Rule 1, follow the provided paper map only. Absolutely no GPS. Rule 2, take the designated long route, no shortcuts. Rule 3, never, under any circumstances, look inside that container, even if the seal breaks or you hear things. Rule 4, refuel exclusively at Mara Station. And finally, Rule 5, if you stop near any town, you do not step outside the truck, period. Breaking any of these didn't just mean getting fired, it meant facing lethal, immediate consequences out there in the dark.
Section 2. Alaska's Haunted Journey. The very moment he drove onto that unmapped route, reality just fractured. Think about normal Alaska. You picture white snow, mapped highways, right? Well, this alternate route was a pure, lethal nightmare. Blood-red lightning actually began striking from the sky. It started pouring freezing rain instead of snow. The paved highway turned into this slick dirt path that literally didn't exist on any map. And yet somehow, his massive rig just glided over the slick mud without slipping at all. It was physically impossible.
The timeline of that night shows a rapidly escalating supernatural threat. It started with that red lightning at midnight. Then, by 2 a.m., his radio just stopped playing music. Instead, it started broadcasting these bone-chilling screams, crying, and whispers in completely unknown languages. And then, right around 4 a.m., he passed through these unmapped villages with bizarre stone houses. The people standing outside were incredibly pale, wearing strange clothes, and standing entirely motionless, like statues. But as his truck rolled past, every single head turned in perfect unison to stare unblinkingly at him. Just terrifying. So I really have to ask you, what do you think was actually inside that container? Think about this. Before he even left, he had to stand 100 feet away while it took 50 grown men to load the cargo into the trailer. 50! Now, out on this lethal road, this massive, heavy-duty truck began swaying violently from side to side. He could literally feel an immense physical weight actively shifting and thrashing from the left side of the metal box to the right. He was physically fighting the steering wheel just to stay alive.
And then came the absolute most terrifying moment of the entire drive. Right over the roaring sound of the engine, coming from directly behind his head inside that sealed metal box, tack, tack, tack. 3 deliberate, heavy knocks. Whatever was locked in the back with him was alive, and it wanted his attention.
Let's break down what happened next. Exhausted and terrified, the driver spots a sign for Daisy's Diner and pulls over in this empty stretch, just thinking he could catch his breath for a second. But the diner was a literal trap. The patrons inside were pale, totally bloodless, just sitting completely motionless with untouched food on their tables. Suddenly, a waitress approached him. But she wasn't walking normally, she was marching, stiffly, like a toy soldier. With this completely emotionless face, she didn't even ask for his order. Instead, she just smiled and offered to refuel his truck out back. The environment wasn't just tricking him, it was actively hunting him. It was trying to force him to break the rule about only refueling at Mara Station. He bolted back to his truck in sheer panic.
Section 3. The Road of Death.
So the crucial point is that the environment then forced a deadly choice. His mapped dirt road was suddenly blocked by a massive fallen tree and surrounded by more of those frozen, statue-like people. But his GPS suddenly showed a wide, paved highway shortcut around it. Terrified, he took the shortcut to avoid the people, which meant breaking a rule. Instantly, a massive, violent tornado materialized right on the highway. The winds were so incredibly fierce they nearly flipped his heavy rig. He had to battle this deadly, unnatural weather, pushing his truck to the absolute physical limit just to force his way back onto the correct, mapped path.
Let him go out. Why aren't you opening it? Once he was back on the right path, the horror just peaked. In the dead of night, totally isolated, a woman suddenly appeared right outside his moving truck and started pounding on his window. But she wasn't human. Her head was split cleanly down the middle, like as if by an axe. And as she somehow effortlessly kept pace with the speeding rig, she begged him, let him go out, why aren't you opening it? She was actively pleading with him to break the ultimate rule, to open the container and unleash whatever nightmare was trapped inside.
The driver completely floored it. He just desperately wanted this nightmare to end. But the road ahead defied the fundamental laws of physics. The asphalt literally angled upward into an absolutely impossible 60-degree incline. A heavy truck cannot climb a 60-degree bridge, right? But his truck just glided up effortlessly. The road had no pillars beneath it, it just stretched straight up into a pitch-black sky. Pretty soon there was no ground, there was no weather, just the truck driving through an endless, deadly void surrounded entirely by stars on all sides.
Section 4. A mysterious conclusion.
And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer madness of the whole trip. Just as he thought he had driven off the face of the earth entirely, the truck started descending through a bizarre brick tunnel and finally pulled into a second abandoned mine. The environment here was completely dead. The trees were leafless, woven together like vines in a giant net. And the receiving crew? They didn't look like miners at all. They were entirely covered in heavy hazmat suits. The driver waited his required 100 feet away. The seal on the container was unbroken. The drop-off was actually a success. But later, when he drove away and finally reached a normal gas station, he tried to call the dispatcher. The number didn't just ring out. The automated message said the number did not exist. It had been completely wiped from reality.
He did use the $50,000 in cash to pay off his debts, but he never told his family where that money came from. He survived the alternate route, but he obviously still carries the heavy psychological weight of that cursed delivery. So I leave you with this final, chilling thought. Knowing everything you just learned about the reality-bending, lethal horrors of that road, if your phone rang tonight and you were offered a life-changing sum of money to follow those 5 impossible rules, would you go?